For the first time ever, the Action Network is bringing you Convince Me like you've never seen it before. That's right, we've gone big time, folks, sparing no expense to bring you all of the stuff and none of the fluff you get on those other pregame shows. A new look, a fresh studio, NFL Wildcard Weekend, our entire crew, the best NFL betting analysts in the country, all in one spot. Well, okay, so I'm not there. Long story, family obligations, blah, 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 you know. But anyway, Darren Rovell, Chris Raybon, Sean Koerner, Simon Hunter, all together live for our first ever studio edition of Convince Me. Good morning. Welcome to Convince Me, presented by bet365. It looks a little different today, folks. For some reason, they have decided to let us build a studio. We got the crew in the studio ready to break everything down. Don't forget, this is the first half of the Action Network Power Hour, the latter half of the show. We got the Touchdown Show with Nick, Giffen, and Gilles Gallant. But right now, we got Sean Koerner, Chris Raybon, Simon Hunter, our experts in the studio. They're going to convince me what bets I want to make on the wildcard games today. Plus, we got Darren Rovell coming up later in the show with the market reports. Reminder, as I said, we are presented by bet365, the world's favorite sportsbook brand. Sign up with promo code ACTION to get bet365 exclusive sign-up offer in New Jersey and Colorado. Bet $1 on any game, get $200 free. All right, we got a couple games we're going to break down today. Best bets from each of our experts. We're starting with the Seahawks and the 49ers. Sean Koerner, give me your best bet.
So I'm going with Geno Smith, under 226 passing yards. He's been one of the bigger surprises of this season. He led the Seahawks team to the playoffs while Russell Wilson watches from home right now. But he's really struggled down the stretch, and he's gone under this number in 3 straight games. And now he's making his first career playoff start on the road against an elite defense in what could see heavy rain. So he has a lot of things going against him. One of the things going in his favor is this should be a trailing game script. You know, the Seahawks are nearly double-digit underdogs, so it could be a pass-heavy game script. However, one of the keys to his success this season has been play-action passing. He ranks 6th in the league on yards per attempt on play-action passes, but that drops to 19th in the league when he's not using play-action. So when they're trailing, it's going to be harder to sell play-action. So I think he's going to get less efficient as the game goes on. Plus, the 49ers are really good at dominating time possession. They're the slowest paced team in the league. They should be able to run with success against the Seahawks defense. So they're going to dominate time possession, limit the number of chances Geno even gets. So he's going to have to be super efficient to clear this number. I'm projecting his median closer to 215.5 yards. So I'd bet this down to about 220.
All right, so Simon, this has been a hard game to handicap all week for us. We've talked about it a ton on the Favorites podcast. We've been seeing how the Seahawks might be the wise guy side as pretty heavy underdogs. Give me your thoughts here on how you're going to play this game.
Yeah, Chad, you know I'm a sucker for first half bets. I look at this matchup here and I just want to take the 49ers first half. I feel like that's where I'm getting the value. It's under a key number right now. So we're seeing first half. A couple books have it at 5. I'm seeing 5.5. That's a big deal. That's still under 6, especially when you look at these two teams. When they played earlier this year, what happened? The 49ers scored 34 points in those first halves. The Seahawks scored 3. So clearly, scheme-up-wise, Shanahan just has the number for this offense going against the Seahawks defense. And then defensively, we've seen DeMeco Ryans is really, this defense has been incredible all season. The fact that he knows the Seahawks so well, already played them twice, knows what Geno wants to do and what he does not like to do, that's just a big advantage to this 49ers team. So to me, we know the first half that better coaches usually have the better scheme. That's the big deal. That's when it really matters. So looking at this matchup here, I just really like that it's still under 6 for this first half bet. So do like the 49ers full game, but I feel like you touched on it. We know a lot of really smart guys have come in on the Seahawks other side. We've seen that number drop down now from 10. To me, the fact that it's moved down, they've shifted off to 6 for the first half. Now you can get the under the 6 first half spread. That's the value in this game to me. So I really like that first half bet.
All right, Raybon, look, we're in a new studio. You guys are christening it together. Are you going to go with form and give me something super disgusting? Are you going to change it up?
I'm going to go with form. We're going Ray McLeod III under half a receiving yard. Deebo Samuel, you might have heard of him. He came back last week. McLeod bumps down on the depth chart. 1 route run. He ran 1 route. His last 5 games with Deebo healthy, he averages 3.4 routes per game. This guy is not going to catch a football in this game. Bet it to any juice.
I don't care how good you guys look in our brand spanking new studio. I love the fact that Raybon was true to himself. You can dress the guy up, but you can't take the trashy pick out of his head. I'm going with Ray McLeod under half a receiving yard. I don't even know how you get there. They're basically saying they agree with Raybon. They don't know if this guy's going to see any offensive snaps, certainly not going to be targets. Give me Ray under half a receiving yard. Darren Rovell?
Thanks, Chad. We're first going to do Chargers and Jags. Most bet props. Number 1, Austin Eckler. First touchdown, plus 500. Then we have Josh Palmer to score anytime touchdown, plus 240. And Keenan Allen at over 6.5 receptions at minus 150. Chargers, 2.5-point favorites. This is the most evenly bet game I have actually seen all year. Chargers are getting 51% of the bets, but money-wise, it is equal at 50-50. Then you look at the total of 47.5, 50% of bets. So again, 50-50 are on split between the over and under, and 54% of the money is on the over. Chad, back to you.
Thank you, Darren. All right, let's get to the next game. We're talking about the Chargers and the Jags. Sean Koerner, give us your best bet.
So I'm going with Austin Eckler over 50.5 rushing yards. And there's actually 3 reasons why I love this bet. The first is this should be a fast-paced game on both sides. And the Jaguars actually allow the 5th most plays per game. So I think the overall volume for the Chargers is going to be up here. So that only helps Eckler's rushing prop. The second is, Eckler's a smaller back. So the Chargers do like to limit him in the regular season. He only accounted for 50% of the rush attempts despite playing all 17 games. So in a game like this, they're going to limit Josh Kelly, Larry Roundtree a little bit more. So I think he's going to extra few carries because it's a playoff game. And third, I have to give you a ref stat on a player prop. But the head ref for this game is Sean Smith, and he calls the fewest offensive holding calls in the league. And when it comes to a rushing over, there's nothing worse than having it called back due to an offensive hold for many reasons. But I think in this game, I wouldn't expect an offensive holding call. So just the little things, Chad. But all the reasons I love him, I'm projecting this closer to 56.5. And I'd probably bet this up to 54.5, actually, just because there's so many reasons to like his over here.
Well, look, then you're still getting a lot of value, a lot of room to move in this prop. Yeah. And listen, you also last week got me on the ref stat on the Colts and the Texans over, and it completely convinced me. That thing practically went over in the first half. So you know I'm always a sucker for the ref stats. Simon Hunter, do you have a ref stat?
Well, Chad, I think I might be going something even grosser. I'm taking the Jaguars here on the spread, plus 2.5. It's a line we've loved all week, but apparently no one else loves it. It's been bet up all the way up to 2.5. Early in the week, it dropped down to 1.5. Now it's back up to 2.5. And we talk all the time, this is a key number, Chad. We love this number, especially in this matchup of what do the Chargers win, but they always have a weird game and a weird number. And at 2.5 in this kind of matchup, I love it. Now you're taking away Mike Williams as well from this Chargers offense. That's a big deal for a team that wants to push the ball downfield. So I see it being a lot of dump offs to Eckler, a lot of short runs with Eckler, a lot of short passes to Keenan Allen. And then on the flip side, you have a Jaguars team that can move the ball down the field. And they do have a bunch of speedsters. So, yeah, even if the Chargers get up a couple points here, maybe a touchdown, I always feel like the back door will be open in this matchup. We've just seen it too often with this Chargers team. They let teams back in. They always have weird games. And we like this position. We're getting a home dog against Herbert. Herbert is a road favorite in this position. Usually does not work out for this team. And the books are smart. The reason they're not pushing up to 3, even though all the money's pouring on this Chargers team, they're just keeping it here at 2.5. So to me, the books are telling us we're getting a good number. We both think we're getting a good number, and it's a key number as well at 2.5. So I like the value at 2.5 in this game.
Yeah, look, we've been talking about it all week. we are on the Jags at 2.5. It's one of those games where I think you and I both feel there's a coaching mismatch between Doug Peterson and Brandon Staley. Too much decision-making variance from Brandon Staley. We've got a coach going on the road as a favorite in a playoff game against a Super Bowl veteran. A lot of things from a coaching perspective we like here. I could also easily see it being a middle, right? Yeah. Where we have the Jags 2.5 and we got the Chargers money line, because that's how close we think this game can be. Raybon, master of the gross, what do you got?
I am going with the under 47 in this game, and I like it because this Charger offense, without Mike Williams, even with Keenan Allen, has been much more inefficient, and Justin Herbert averages nearly a yard fewer per attempt without Mike Williams on the field. So even if the Chargers are able to drive down the field, it's going to take more plays, and they're 20th in red zone efficiency. So the Chargers aren't great at scoring when they get in scoring position either. And then on the other side of the ball, the Jaguars are dealing with offensive line injuries compared to earlier in the year. And you have Brandon Staley. And say what you want about him going for it and playing guys who, in a meaningless game, defensively, the one thing he knows how to do is scheme. And matching up with Trevor Lawrence for the second time now, I think the scheme is going to be a lot better, especially with Joey Bosa healthy. And let's not forget, this is a game that fits a big trend. Wild card unders outdoors over the last 20 years are hitting at 68% over a sample size of nearly 70 games. So give me the under 47 in Chargers Jags.
What am I supposed to do here? I got Simon giving me an ugly home dog, which is an automatic play for me. I got Raybon giving me beautiful trends for an under. I got Koerner giving me official stats. I love all three of these. I've got to stick to my roots, though. I am always going to be a home dog player.
There we go.
And I will say this. All season long, we've been banking on the Jags. All season long, we've been betting that the coach for the Jags, Doug Peterson, and Trevor Lawrence were going to come together. They were going to have a mind meld. They were going to be great. We bet them early in the year to win the division. That paid off. I'm rolling with the Jags, plus 2.5. Although I will say, if you look in the Action Network app, you can see I've bet all three of these. So I love the Jags for this purpose, but I do love all three of these bets. Darren Rovell, give me a market report.
Thanks, Chad. Now let's get to 49ers Seahawks. Let's start with the most bet props. They are all involving Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey to score an anytime touchdown at minus 130 is the most bet, but then first touchdown plus 400 is number 2, and over 73.5 rushing yards at minus 110. 49ers are 9.5-point favorites. They are getting 71% of the bets and 82% of the money. And then that total of 42, remember the weather is not supposed to be good, 62% of the bets and 65% of the money is on the under. And Convince Me is presented by bet365, the world's favorite sportsbook brand. Sign up with promo code ACTION to get Bet365's exclusive sign-up offer in New Jersey and Colorado. Bet $1 on any game, get $200 free.
All right, Darren, thank you very much. Reminder, everything we're talking about, all the picks, all the data, all the research, available for free in the award-winning Action Network app. This has been Convince Me, presented by Bet365. Huge shout out and thanks to our fantastic production crew, which pulled off a miracle and got our first show done in our studio. Christina Ventura, Bridie Rubino, Gifford Gould, Barbara Alberts, Katie Rich Creek on the scene. Stick around for the touchdown show coming up with Nick Giffen and Gilles Gallant. Before we get there, quick Power Hour halftime with Darren Rovell and our Director of Research, Evan Abrams, with some really cool stats. Darren, take it away.
Welcome to the Wild Card Power Hour halftime extravaganza, sponsored by Bet365. I'm Darren Rovell, and we are joined by our head of research here at the Action Network, Evan Abrams. Evan, what our goal is here is to give people additional data so that they will consider their bets maybe in a different light. So we're going to start with the 49ers and Seahawks. What are some pieces of information that you can impart to the viewers that might affect how they bet here?
First of all, Darren, hello. How are you?
Hello.
Let's start with the Seahawks here. 200-1 future odds for them to win the Super Bowl entering the season. Third worst of any team. The two better, Falcons, Texans. So there you go with that. And then since 1990, only 4 teams, 200-1 or longer in the preseason to win the Super Bowl, actually made the playoffs. The previous 3 all lost in the wild card round. So everyone thinks Seattle is going to lose today. Seems like it's probably going to be the case, but I have an article up on actionnetwork.com, lists all the teams 200-1 if you want to check it out.
Okay, on the 49ers side, this is the one that scared the hell out of me as a 49er backer. The 49ers have won 10 consecutive games, and leading into the playoffs, this is the crazy stat from you, the last 20 years, there have been 15 teams that have won 10 consecutive games leading into the playoffs. They're 7-8 straight up, and this is like horrendous beyond belief. 2-13 against the spread. That, to me, is like the craziest on the Niners side.
I'll add to that. So right before we got on the call, I actually checked the list of the 15 teams because I was curious the 2 covers and how they performed in terms of the spread. Those 2 covers, they were -3. Everyone above -3 didn't cover the spread. So the big number tonight might be the issue. I see a lot of predictions, people saying San Francisco small. Maybe we see it.
Anything more on San Francisco?
I'll add one more. Kyle Shanahan. What we're used to with Shanahan is not covering as a favorite, especially against the division. But he has won 7 straight NFC West games straight up and against the spread dating back to last year. The Niners were 2-9-1 ATS as a favorite versus the NFC West entering the season. This year, Darren, 5-0 against the spread. So let's see if they roll that today.
Okay, let's go to the nightcap. The Chargers-Jaguars. Chargers 2.5-point favorites. My stupid stat, and you always give me some great stupid stats, is that Trevor Lawrence has never lost on a Saturday, 3-0 in high school, and was that hard to get? And 32-0 at Clemson. But give us some relevant stats as far as let's start with the Chargers. So give me some stats on the Chargers here as 2.5-point favorites.
Sure. So let's talk revenge for a second. So Herbert and the Chargers lost by 28 points to the Jags earlier this season. As we know, every matchup this weekend is a rematch. So in this one, Herbert has actually excelled this year in a revenge spot. He's 5-2 straight up, 6-0-1 against the spread after losing to an opponent in LA's previous meetings. So we've seen this a few other times. The interesting part is if you look through history, it kind of flips. The team off the revenge spot usually doesn't perform well. It's like 6-13, something like that, when they lost by this much of a margin. But Herbert this year's performed well, so let's see how they do today or tonight, I guess.
All right, give me the Chargers on the road. What's that data there?
So Chargers on the road, 7-2 against the spread. But what I really want to focus on is 11 consecutive seasons above 500 against the spread on the road. Nobody, even through the years, has been better than the Chargers.
All right, get me to some Jaguars data that will make me feel good about the Jaguars.
So I'm a big trivia guy, so I'm going to lead you with a stat, and then I'm going to ask you a question you're not going to get. Jaguars coach Doug Peterson has coached 5 playoff games as an underdog. He's 5-0 against the spread. In the last 20 years, there's only one other coach undefeated as an underdog in the playoffs, minimum 4 games. Darren Rovell, it's on you.
John Harbaugh.
That's a great try. Tom Coughlin is 8-0 against the spread as an underdog in the playoffs. Maybe that magic fills to Daniel Dimes this weekend. We'll see.
All right, and then I just got less obvious stats, but you know the fact or more obvious stats. Trevor Lawrence in November, since November, is second best in completion percentage, third in passer rating, and you gotta love in the last 7 games, 14 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and straight up, he's 6-1. I am actually tempting myself to take the Jaguars money line here, but I'm, of course, not the expert, but thank you for giving me the data and giving all our viewers the data to make us feel better about our bets. That's Evan Abrams. I'm Darren Rovell. And now let's get to the touchdown show with Nick Giffen and Gilles Gallant. Take it away, guys.
Thank you, Darren, and welcome to the Touchdown Show on the Action Network presented by Bet365. I'm Gilles Gallant, and I'm joined by Nick Giffen. We're in studio in New York. No more Zooms. Welcome.
I love it. Finally in studio and ready for Wild Card Weekend. We are going to present you with some touchdown bets, some buys, sells, and of course, make sure you're following us in the Action Network app because Gilles and I always track all of our picks right there.
That's right. Super Wildcard Weekend. We've got Chargers versus Jaguars to the nightcap, and we've got San Francisco 49ers hosting the Seattle Seahawks. We're going to talk about who we're buying and selling in those games, and of course, give out some anytime touchdown bets. And the Touchdown Show is presented by bet365, the world's favorite sportsbook brand. If you sign up with promo code ACTION, you'll get Bet365's exclusive sign-up offer in both New Jersey, Colorado, and now Ohio. All you got to do is bet $1 on any game, and you get $200 free. It's that simple. All right, Nick, I don't want to mess around. I want to get going here. I want to look at the Seahawks 49ers because I've got some guys that I want to buy in this game and definitely want to sell. So let's look at the touchdown odds for these games. First, we're seeing Christian McCaffrey as the most likely to score a touchdown at -150, along with Deebo Samuel at +150 and George Kittle at +150 as well. On the Seattle side, you're seeing Kenneth Walker at +162 and Brandon Ayuk at +187 for these odds. Now, who I'm going to be buying in this game, Nick, I'm going to be looking at Deebo Samuel. And the reason why we're going to be looking at Deebo in this game is he's finally healthy, came back in Week 18 for some limited reps just to be able to knock the rust off, you know. And the Seahawks run defense, they're horrible. They're bottom 5 in rush defense. They are also bottom 3 in receiving yards to running backs. And the reason why that's relevant is that is where Deebo will line up occasionally, especially in this 49ers offense. That's who I'm buying, Nick. How about yourself?
Yeah, Gilles, I definitely agree with you. I am buying Deebo Samuel as well. I think this is a super matchup for Deebo. Seattle, they play zone defense at one of the highest rates in the NFL, and Deebo Samuel, his yards per route run is almost 2 yards per route run versus zone defense, whereas it's just 1 yard per route run, closer to 1 yard per route run versus man defense. So a great schematic fit here for Deebo Samuel. We're also looking at some potential weather issues. We've got rain, wind in the forecast. So what that's going to do is it's going to force a lot more shorter passing, maybe more running, and I think that plays right into Deebo's strengths because he's a multifaceted option there for San Francisco. And then also, of course, you mentioned how Seattle, they struggle. Well, they also allow the 4th most rushing yards to wide receivers. So very, very unfortunate situation for Seattle there that they have to go up against this multifaceted monster in Deebo Samuel. So I'm right there with you, Gilles.
Yeah, and with such a big spread at 9.5 for the 49ers, this game could get out of hand early. And so we are both buying Deebo Samuel in this matchup. A little foreshadowing as well. Stay tuned to the end of the show for the Bet365 Anytime Touchdown Boosted Parlay. Now, who we are selling in this matchup, I'm going to get us started, and I am selling all the running backs in this game, especially on the Seahawks side. And the reason why we are fading these Seahawks running backs is the 49ers graded out as the top 5 team stopping the run. They are 3rd in rush yards allowed. They only gave up 7 rushing touchdowns all season. And in 2 games versus the 49ers this year, the Seahawks have combined for 105 yards total for rushing attempts. So Kenneth Walker, DJ Dallas, Travis Homer, I mean, you give me peak Sean Alexander, and I am still fading the running backs in this matchup. How about yourself?
Yeah, Gilles, I'm right there with you again, and I guess we're going to be doing a lot of agreeing on this show. I promise we won't only be agreeing, but I am agreeing with you here. I am selling Kenneth Walker. San Francisco, they are an excellent defense. They're number 1 overall in defensive DVOA. They're number 2 in rush defense DVOA. And they are number 1 in defensive DVOA in the pass game to running backs. So just an atrocious situation here for Kenneth Walker. So I'm right there. I'm selling Kenneth Walker, selling that Seattle running game. My other sell, though, I'm going to be selling DK Metcalf in this one. Oh, yeah. I'm selling DK Metcalf at +260. Those seem like long odds, but again, this is not a very good situation for Metcalf. While he does get a lot of red zone looks, the issue here for Metcalf is that, he is much better versus man defense. And Seattle and San Francisco, they both play high zone defense rates. San Francisco is 5th highest in the NFL at zone defense rates. So I think they're going to keep Metcalf underneath. And I don't think he's going to get a long reception here. So he's going to have to score in the red zone, which he does get a lot of red zone looks, but I just don't see Seattle getting into the red zone all that much. The other thing is, if there are downfield passes for DK Metcalf, we again have that rain, that wind issue. And San Francisco is much better defending long passes to the left side of the field instead of the middle or the right side of the field. So I'm also selling DK Metcalf in addition to the Seattle running game.
Yeah, DK did not really have much success this season against San Francisco. Was held under 50 yards in the last time they played. Some of that could be attributed to Geno Smith, but at the same time, the passing game has struggled for Seattle in this matchup. All right, now moving on, let's look at the nightcap. Let's look at the Chargers versus Jaguars. Now, the top 5 anytime touchdown scorers in this matchup, you're looking at Austin Eckler at -150, Travis Etienne at -105, Keenan Allen at +125, and then Josh Palmer at +160, and rounding out the top 5, Christian Kirk at +175. Now, who I'm going to be buying in this matchup, Nick, I'm going to be buying Keenan Allen at +125, and mainly because he's finally healthy. He missed 8 games this year, was in and out of the lineup, but he's got double-digit targets in 4 of the last 6 games, and no Mike Williams. Fractured back, he's not going to be playing, and the Jaguars have struggled versus slot receivers. 18 touchdowns this season to wide receivers, 7 of those to slot receivers. So I'm going to be buying Keenan Allen in this matchup. Now, who I'm selling? Instead of trying to keep up with the Joneses, I'm going to be fading the Joneses. I am fading Zay Jones and Marvin Jones Jr. And similar to the health aspect, the Chargers are finally healthy, getting a lot of their defenders back, Joey Bosa, Derwin James, and they've allowed 14 touchdowns to wide receivers this year, which isn't great, but doesn't really tell the whole story, because in the second half of the season, from week 9 onward, they only allowed 4 touchdowns, Nick. And of those 4 touchdowns, 2 of them were to Davante Adams. And guess what? Zay and Marvin Jones are not Davante Adams. So we are not going to be taking Jaguars wide receivers in this matchup. We're going to be fading them, and we're going to be taking Keenan Allen. I want to hear now what you're going to be doing.
Yeah, well, I'm finally going to disagree with you in one spot here, Gilles. You are buying Keenan Allen. I'm buying nobody. I'm buying nobody.
Hard pass.
In fact, I am selling touchdowns in this game. And it's not because I don't think there will be touchdowns scored. I actually think there could be plenty of touchdowns scored in this game. I am just fading everybody because I don't like the odds. This is a pretty juiced one-way market. So I think this is just a situation where I'm just being price sensitive. I can't get behind Keenan Allen +125. He has 3 touchdowns in 10 games this year that he's played, and really 3 in like 8 healthy games. What that equates to in odds is about +167.
Right.
So I can't get there at +125. I like Eckler, but again, I think the price is too short. Josh Palmer is somebody that really interests me, especially with Mike Williams out. I think this is a great matchup for Allen. I think it's a great matchup for Palmer. I think it's a great matchup for Eckler, but it's, again, price, +160, just way too short. On the Jacksonville side of the ball, I think Christian Kirk is the key for the Jaguars this weekend. Christian Kirk, he does really well versus man defense, and the Chargers are a top 5 team in man defensive rate. But there is some downside here because the Chargers are also excellent against slot wide receivers. In my slot wide receiver metric, which combines efficiency, volume, and touchdowns, the Chargers are the 5th best against slot wide receivers. Wow. So even though there's upside for Kirk, there's some downside here, so not quite there at +175. And then finally, Travis Etienne, I think that is just too short of a price for him as well. Yeah, it's too short. And our guys, Koerner, Raybon, they are top 5 projections this year, according to Fantasy Pros.
That's right.
Top 5. These guys are projecting an average of +125 as fair value on Travis Etienne. So I'm selling the whole game here, Gilles, but I do want to say, keep an eye out on Josh Palmer. If his odds drift maybe to about +250, +260, I may end up tracking him in the Action Network app. But other than that, we're going to have to wait for the boosted odds because we do have a pick from this game in the boosted odds.
That's right. I love a little bit of foreshadowing as well.
That's right.
Yes. Yeah, and Palmer, again, you can shop around, but yes, I would try to pay attention to him. I think he is going to have a much larger role now in this offense with Mike Williams out. All right, Nick, I am ready to give out some picks.
Let's do it.
We've talked about both matchups for wildcard on the Saturday. We're going to be doing a pick from the San Francisco-Seattle game, and we are collabing on this pick, and we are looking at George Kittle at +175. Now, George Kittle, Nick, he's got 7 touchdowns in his last 4 games. To put that in perspective, he has not had more than 6 touchdowns in a season. So we're going to be taking Kittle there. He's got 11 touchdowns this year. That's 3rd in the NFL. Now, they played the Seahawks recently in Week 15, 2 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns in the last 2 games versus the Seahawks. And why I keep bringing that up is because Seattle graded out as the worst team versus tight ends according to DVOA this season, and they gave up 8 touchdowns to the position. And the Purdy-Kittle connection, I think, is real. Like, I've been a little hesitant about Brock Purdy just being a rookie and playing in this offense, but he's kind of a set and forget from a quarterback standpoint. But the Purdy-Kittle connection is real. 7 touchdowns in 6 starts for Brock Purdy. So I like George Kittle in this matchup to score. Nick, I think you echo that same sentiment.
Yeah, my best bet number 1 is also George Kittle. And, you know, Gilles, you touched on how Seattle is pretty bad versus the tight end. So while this is also a great positional matchup for Kittle, I also think it's a great schematic matchup for George Kittle. We talked about how Seattle has a high zone rate. Well, George Kittle has been much better versus the zone. He's been at 1.84 yards per route run versus the zone, whereas 1.23 versus man, so much better versus the zone. Also, 5 of his touchdowns have come versus zone, whereas only 3 have come versus man defense. So definitely a good situation here. Obviously, the weather's still a factor, as we mentioned in some of the other buys and sells that from this game. Well, I think this really helps Kittle because his average depth of target is only 6.4 yards. So if there's going to be more shorter passes because of this wind, this rain, I think that favors George Kittle. And also, you know, I think this is just a good spot because Seattle struggles versus the shorter pass. They are 28th in defensive DVOA versus passes under 15 yards. So you're showing projection value. I'm showing projection value. Raybon and Koerner are showing projection value across the board. So George Kittle is my best bet for the wild card weekend. I'm so used to saying week 18, week 17.
We're stuck in
wild card weekend.
It's playoff time, baby. And one of the reasons, too, I think why we have to get on George Kittle is where the odds are. When we're sitting at plus 175, the only tight end who had more touchdowns than George Kittle this year, Travis Kelce. And you can't usually get him better than minus 110, maybe even money depending on the matchup. Now you're getting George Kittle around plus 175. Great value here. All right, now I want to give out our second collaboration bet of the day, and it is still with the Seahawks versus 49ers. And we're going to be taking Tyler Lockett for an anytime touchdown at plus 300. Lockett has 9 touchdowns this year. That's 5th in the NFL. And he also had a 6-game streak this year, Nick, scoring a touchdown with Geno Smith at quarterback. Now, this season, they've played against the 49ers twice. Didn't have any touchdowns in those games, but plenty of volume to go around. 16 catches on 20 targets. He had 3 red zone targets in those 2 matchups. That's just 1 less than DK Metcalf. And the 49ers, as you alluded to, have struggled versus the slot. 6 touchdowns actually allowed to slot receivers, both either receiver or tight end, in the last 4 games. Now, I am going to disagree with you on one part because I do feel like DK Metcalf is going to get red zone targets. And I think we could both agree, especially because he was 3rd or 4th in the NFL in total red zone targets. But part of the reason why we're going with Lockett is he could score from anywhere. 45-yard touchdown, 25-yard touchdown, 7-yard touchdown. We've seen it all from Tyler Lockett this year. So Tyler Lockett at plus 300 is my second best bet of the day. And it is a Lockett in our pocket, Nick.
Oh, that was bad. That was bad.
You don't
Lock
like
it in our pocket?
Well, I'm just trying to be funny. You
I
know
know
how it goes.
Yeah, well, you know, I like puns too, but I don't know about that one.
It's because you're, not a dad. That's why.
Right. I'm not a dad. That is a good point. So Tyler Lockett is also my second best bet, and I promise Gilles and I will diverge with our third best bet. But Tyler Lockett is my second best bet. You know, again, I just love the situation here for him compared to his teammate DK Metcalf. Tyler Lockett has the better matchup here with San Francisco's high zone rate. That favors Tyler Lockett, who has 2 yards per route run versus zone, versus about 1.35 versus man defense. Whereas on the flip side, DK Metcalf's at about 1.5 yards route run versus the zone. And that doubles to 3 yards per route run, just under 3 yards per route run versus man. So this defensive schematics here favor Tyler Lockett. Additionally, DK Metcalf, he lines up on the left side 60% of the time. And he doesn't drift into the slot a whole lot where he would be able to face Jimmy Ward, who has been terrible this year. Whereas Tyler Lockett, he lines up in the slot or on the right about 80% of the time. And that is much more favorable because San Francisco versus the deep ball has actually struggled in the middle and to the right portions of the field. They are bottom 8 against the deep ball in defensive DVOA to the middle and the right, whereas they are much better in the left side for the deep ball, which is where, again, where DK Metcalf lines up. So I think this is a situation where if I'm picking between those two wide receivers, Gilles, I'm picking Tyler Lockett as the better matchup. Plus, he has the longer odds, so why wouldn't we take it?
Yeah, of course. And I think that's why we're both taking him, is a lot of the things that you just illustrated there. So Tyler Lockett is our second best bet of the day. Now, this is where we deviate paths here. So we've done both picks that we both like. Now, there's only 2 games, so there's only so many guys to choose from. But this is where we are going to deviate, and I'm going to be taking Trevor Lawrence to score a touchdown at plus 390. Now, Lawrence has 5 rushing touchdowns this year. 14 red zone carries, Nick, which was 6 for all quarterbacks. And I think that's a very prominent stat now, just especially with the way that dual threat quarterbacks have kind of emerged in the NFL. The Chargers, bottom 5 in rushing yards allowed, 17 rushing touchdowns this year. 3 of those were to quarterbacks. And we alluded to this earlier. The Travis Etienne odds are out of control. Like, he is anywhere between minus 105 and minus 135 to score a touchdown. And that's just not good enough, because when you look at the Jags' recent success, they had a 5-game win streak to kind of close the year. You only had 1 touchdown in that game. So if the Jags are even going to have any chance, likely Etienne is not going to be part of that. And in a do-or-die game at home, I like Trevor Lawrence to take some initiative, as my parents used to say to me. Take some initiative and score a touchdown against this defense. So Trevor Lawrence at plus 390 is my final best bet of Wildcard Saturday.
There you go. I like it. I guess I like it as much as I can like it, because I don't have any picks from this game. Remember, I sold the whole game.
No, you crapped on the entire game.
I did. Which is why my third pick is still from the San Francisco and Seattle game. My best bet, number 3, I'm putting half a unit, long shot, on Kyle Juszczyk plus 1,100. Yeah, the juice is loose.
Okay, come on now. You can't say Lockett, my pocket is bad, and the juice is loose is bad.
Come on. I'll give that to you, Gilles. Right. So, Seattle, they are just terrible versus running backs. They are 24th in defensive DVOA on the ground. And, in fact, they're 30th in defensive pass DVOA to running backs. And we know Kyle Juszczyk can catch some passes. He does have a receiving TD this year. San Francisco, they're a heavy favorite, 9.5, 10-point favorite at home. We're going to have the rain and the wind, which should probably, again, keep things more on the ground. And, the juice, he's kind of been a TD machine under Shanahan. He has scored a touchdown in 1 out of every 7.6 games while he's played for Shanahan. So, that includes 1 in 6 postseason games. So we're getting 11-1, and he's scoring 1 in every 6.5, every 7.5 games. Those odds are too long, and I think in a blowout, this really favors Juszczyk. San Francisco being maybe a double-digit point favorite if it closes that way. Juszczyk's touchdowns have both come in double-digit situations, and I think this could happen again. So Kyle Juszczyk, my best bet, number 3, Gilles. I got half a unit.
So 2 things. 1, Juice, he scored in the first time they played against Seattle. The second thing I wanted to ask you is, what do you think is harder? Spelling Kyle Juszczyk on the first attempt or hitting a Kyle Juszczyk anytime touchdown bet?
So I
actually
have some Eastern European heritage, so I may actually say hitting the touchdown. But Juszczyk, I think I got it.
All right, those are our touchdown bets. I am on George Kittle and Tyler Lockett, as is Nick. I'm going to be taking Trevor Lawrence. He is taking Kyle Juszczyk to round it out. So that's 3 picks from each of us. And now we're going to give out the anytime touchdown boosted parlay from bet365. So to unveil this, the first guy that we're going to have is Deebo Samuel, and we're going to have Austin Eckler. Now, we already talked about why Deebo is going to be a solid play here. We both like him in this matchup. He's both of our buys, and especially in the poor weather, we think he could be very effective. Now, Austin Eckler, touchdown machine. We've had him on the boost before. Since week 4, he has scored tons of touchdowns, and he is the most receiving touchdowns for a running back this year. He didn't finish with the most rushing touchdowns. That went to Jamal Williams, but he still did plenty of work in that spot. And we have these odds boosted from plus 316 to plus 395.
Yeah, I think it's a great boost. And while I wasn't buying anybody from the Jacksonville versus LA Chargers game, I can get there when we boost their odds.
Exactly.
So definitely like Austin Eckler. And I think, this is a really good matchup for Eckler. Jacksonville is a defense that, frankly, they struggle. They struggle versus running backs. They struggle versus pass-catching running backs. So I think Austin Eckler has a great shot to get in the end zone. And we both talked about buying Debo. So I don't really have any more to add there. But, the boosted odds here, getting us to almost 4-1 odds to hit this, I hope we do, because that'd be a nice little hit at 4-1 almost.
Well, absolutely. And so the touchdown boosted parlay is Debo Samuel and Austin Eckler boosted from plus 316 to plus 395. So that is it for us. We've got 3 picks in. We've got a touchdown boosted parlay out for anybody who wants to tail that. And of course, make sure to tune in tomorrow. We're going to be part again of the Action Network Power Hour, where we're going to be previewing and giving out touchdown picks for all 3 of the wildcard games. Thank you again for watching the Touchdown Show on the Action Network, presented by Bet365, and bon chance.